Okay, so now we've got our rows with the hexagons all joined. So we've got a row of 3, row of 4, row of 5, and a row of 4 and a row of 3. And we've got them in that order because that's how we're going to have them joined. How did you go? Did you remember to make sure that you had a nice firm double knot at each end? Did you remember to do 12 to 15 stitches in between? Did you remember to keep them nice and straight as you did your whip stitch? How did you go with just getting across the top of that paper without going through it? We're going to find that out when we take them out a bit later. Making sure that you were far enough into the edge though, so that your stitches weren't sitting on top of the fabric. If we pull on them a little bit, you might be able to see some little gaps in your stitches where perhaps there was a bit of an extra space between your stitches. If you've got anything like that, or if you think it might be coming undone on the corners, now's the time to go back over that, just to put in an extra couple of stitches in that space where there might be a gap, or where there might it might be coming undone at the edges. Did you check that your edges, your corner edges, are all lined up next to each other? So once we've done that and we've made sure that we've got no gaps, we need to actually join the rows to one to each other. And if you keep in mind that the points of these hexagons will slot in there like that, and this one will slot in like that, and they'll be joined together like that. So once again, with our milliner's needle and our 80 weight thread, which we use because it helps to make the stitches least visible on the right hand side, tiny needle and tiny lightweight thread is the best way to make invisible stitches. Once again, putting a quilter's knot on the bottom of our thread. And we'll start by picking up these first 2 rows. So remembering that those 2 are going to slot together like that. So we need to sew this edge to that edge like that. So put your right sides together. And we'll use our clip once again to hold it so we don't have too much strain on our fingers or our wrists, our hands. Can I get you to stop that? Okay, so it's these 2 edges that we're going to be joining together to start with. Now, of course, you'll see that the top row of hexagons are pointing in a completely different direction to the bottom row, and that's quite okay. That's how it should be, because when we get down to this corner, we're actually going to bend the papers so that we can sew this edge to that edge. But let's make sure we've got our corners and our points lined up beautifully to start with, and we'll once again put our needle up through our fold so the knot goes in under the fold. And you'll notice that I put that stitch in just a little bit away from the edge there. What we're going to do is just come back and put the first stitch right on the edge, and it just is an extra way of ensuring that we've come right to the edge with our stitches. And we'll put an extra knot in there. Make sure it's nicely secure. Don't worry about putting too many stitches on the edge. It's best to make sure that it is secure, because those corners are the places that will take the most strain. Okay, so we've got those 2 points in the center will meet together. Once again, we're just going to do our whip stitch exactly the same way we did it before. Imagining that we're going to the second thread down from the top. We're not going to go through the paper. We're just skimming across the top of the paper, and we'll continue along that edge until we get to the center where the next point of our hexagon is. Now, if you find that for some reason that you need to sort of move one along a little bit, they might be getting out of line. It is possible just to do that with your fingers to make sure that they do meet in the corners. If you've folded your fabric over your hexagons right from the beginning beautifully, you shouldn't have too much difficulty getting those hexagons to meet on those points. Once we reach those points, once again I would do just a couple of extra stitches right there in the middle to make sure that's nice and secure. And then we open it up. What we're going to see is we've done this side and now we have to do this one. The only way we can do that is to fold it back this way. Just get my needle out of the road. Okay, so we're folding it back so those two edges are together now, and lining up, making sure you have those points together in the middle and those edges together at the end of that hexagon. So this one, you'll see you've bent it in half, and that's okay. We'll put our binding clip on underneath. There's no particular right or wrong way in positioning your binding clip. You just need to keep it as best as you can so your thread doesn't get caught around it. So once again, because I'm in the center, I've moved forward a little bit. Just going to put a couple of stitches in that center place. So I've got it nice and secured, and then I'll continue along. Once you get to the end, a couple of extra stitches there because you're in between your hexagons. Even put a little knot in there just in case it comes undone. We know that it won't go past where that knot is. Okay, so we're coming together, and you'll see how I've got these hexagons joined there. And now we're going to join these two edges together. So once again, we will turn so that the two edges are facing. Just wiggle them along a little bit. Pop your binding clip in, and we'll continue to do that then along to the end of the row. Thanks. So we're up at the end of this row again, and making sure that our points meet, and we'll put in a few extra stitches there before we finish it off. Securely. I always like to be safe on the edges, so I put in an extra knot there. Snip our thread. When we open it up, then you'll see that you've got your row of 4 hexagons joined to your row of 3. Okay, so in exactly the same way as we did that, we're going to join our next row on. So just position it so you can see where the seams are that you're going to be joining together. So with your row of 5, you'll have effectively half a hexagon sitting out either side of your row of 4. So this seam here, there will be the first one that we're going to join together. So just flipping those edges over, popping in your clip on this side, and repeating the process. So starting with your thread up into the fold so that you're hiding your knot, and then when you get your needle through, just coming back along so that you're making sure you've got some firm stitches in the corner where your hexagon meet. Okay, then in exactly the same way as we did the previous row, we're going to go across and join these 2 rows together. When you've finished joining this row, we'll add on the other 2 rows in the same way, and then we'll have a look at it when we've got all our rows joined together. Okay, so we've joined all our hexagons together now, and I've given it a press just with an iron to flatten it out, and also just to make sure that the seam allowance is pressed down over there. I didn't take any of the papers out as I was going, but we certainly could have. I've kept them in to show you how to take them out. With your papers, you need to make sure that, let's have a look at this center hexagon, for example. We wouldn't take that out until we had all the hexagons that were around it joined on. But once it's completely enclosed, this center one is enclosed by other hexagons, we could actually have taken that paper out. Similarly, once we got the outside edge on, we could have taken out the second round of papers as well. And by doing that, it makes it a little bit easier to hold, particularly if you are doing a much bigger project. Okay, so as I said, I've given it a steam, not a steam, just a press with a dry iron. Now, depending on how much glue you've actually put on your papers, it will determine how easy it is to pull those papers out. You'll see this hexagon is in the middle is the one that I thread basted first up. So the glue is water soluble, and you should be able to just lift the edge and pull your papers out. Now, if we were to look closely at this hexagon, you'll see there's some tiny little nicks where the needle and thread is passed across it going through, and that's what we want. There's no holes in the paper. So just once you've given your piece a press, go through then and pull out all the papers. Just lift the edge with your finger and pop underneath them and pull the papers out. Just do that, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I've got all my papers out now. If you do have any trouble getting those papers out, just lifting the fabric and gently pulling it out, because you don't want to pull your stitches too hard. You can either give it a press with a steam iron, because the glue is water soluble and it will help to loosen the glue. The other thing that I would do is to just lift the fabric with a pair of scissors or something else gently, and that will help lift it as well if you're having any problems, but they should all come out. The other thing I've done now is given it a press again, because sometimes these edges, the outside edges will open as you take your paper out, so we want it to keep that nice shape. So the next step then in the pattern is to make a round circle base to join onto this. Now with the lickety split pattern, there is a pattern in there for the circle, and I've cut that out here and I'll just pop it on there. Now if you're using hexagons of a different size, you would need to make yourself a circle piece, perhaps using a plate or a compass or something that will fit, and just observe where the circle meets your hexagons underneath. Now I mentioned earlier about some of these outside ones actually really could have been half hexagons, and you'll see where they are. So this one could have been a half hexagon, these ones could have been also. Just something to consider next time you make up. So what we're going to do now, we've got our circle cut with right sides together. We're going to stitch around that, and we'll leave just a small opening, maybe 3 to 4 inches, where we're going to put our stuffing in. So let's do that and then we'll come back. Okay, so we've machine stitched 1/4 inch in from the outside edge of the circle and back stitched at the beginning and at the end. So that's our little opening, and we'll turn it inside out. But before we do that, we'll need to cut around the outside edge and clip some curves. Okay, so it'll look something like this once you've trimmed the outside edge and you've clipped the curves in several places so that it sits nicely when you turn it inside out and sit from the wrong or the right side. So all we'll do now is turn it right sides out, and then we're going to fill it with some polyester stuffing. I tend to use just a pillow and grab the stuffing out of that. You might have something else that you prefer to fill with. So we'll do that and come back once we've got our stuffing inside. So we've filled our pincushion now with polyester filling, and as I said, I use the pillow filling or cushion filling, or you might have toy filling, whatever you've got, to give it a cushiony effect. And then I hand stitched closed the opening there somewhere. Okay, after that I grabbed a long needle, the longest needle I had. Now if you've got a doll needle, that's a perfect choice for doing this last bit. And I've threaded that with 3 strands of embroidery thread, piece about 2 meters long, and found the bottom of my pincushion had a really big knot in the bottom of my thread. Put the needle through the bottom and brought it up through the top of the pincushion in the center, the middle of the center hexagon, and then brought that over the top and back up through the bottom. Then from there, once I'd come out, over the top in the opposite direction, so we're going opposite sides, and then I did it the other way once again in opposite directions, and then I did exactly the same way through the middle. So we've ended up with those segments. Once I've done that, I've put a button on the top and stitched through to the back, and then put a little ladybug button on the back, and once again secured it and tied it off. And that's the finished pin cushion, all ready to hold your needles and pins. Thanks for joining us, and I hope to see your pin cushions when you've got them finished. Please share them with me. Thank you.